waiter is fired for giving food to an elderly woman in a homeless situation. 6 minutes later, the boss arrived, and what he did left everyone in shock. The clock on the wall of Sabores Caseros ticked toward the end of another busy day. Jose, a young waiter in his 20s, was finishing up cleaning the tables while the delicious smell of homemade food still filled the air. It was the kind of comforting scent that reminded people of Grandma's cooking. The restaurant was simple, but it had a special charm. For Jose, this job was more than just serving food. He loved seeing the customers leave with a smile, full and happy. But there was one part of his routine that always made him uneasy: throwing away the leftover food. That moment always tugged at his heart. As usual, when the night came to a close, Jose grabbed the trash bags from the kitchen and headed to the back of the restaurant to throw them out. The air was cool, and the streets were nearly empty. The only person in sight was a hunched-over woman sitting on the sidewalk near the restaurant. Jose had seen her before, always around the area, but he had never spoken to her. Today, though, something made him stop. As he got closer, he noticed how tired she looked. Her eyes were deep, and her face was marked by the harshness of life. Her name, as Jose would soon learn, was Matilde. With a trembling hand, almost shyly, she raised her hand and asked for something. "Do you have anything for me to eat?" she asked in a raspy, weak voice. "I haven't eaten in days." Jose's heart sank. He looked at the trash bags full of food he was about to throw away, and without a second thought, he knelt beside her, feeling like he needed to help. "Wait here for a second," Jose said, quickly getting up and hurrying back into the restaurant. He didn't waste any time. In just a few minutes, he prepared a plate with the day's leftovers, carefully arranging everything as if he were serving a special guest. When he returned, he handed the plate to Matilde, who looked at the food like it was the most precious gift she'd ever received. "Thank you, son. You have no idea how much this means to me," Matilde said, her eyes filling with grateful tears. Jose sat down beside her while she ate slowly. Each bite seemed to bring her a little relief. Jose couldn't help but wonder what this woman had been through. "How long have you been living on the streets?" he asked, breaking the silence. "Too long, son. So long that I've lost count. Some days are better than others, but lately things have been really tough," she replied, pausing between bites. Jose felt a lump in his throat. The thought of someone going so long without a proper meal really bothered him. He knew the restaurant threw away lots of food every night, and at that moment, an idea began to form in his mind. "I can bring you food," he said, eager to help. "Every day, I can set something aside before throwing away the leftovers." Matilde stopped eating for a moment and looked at him with a mix of surprise and concern. "You have a good heart, son. But what if this gets you in trouble? I don't want you to lose your job because of me." Jose shrugged, offering a gentle smile. "Doing good shouldn't cause problems. The important thing is helping those in need. I can't just turn a blind eye." Matilde's eyes sparkled with quiet gratitude. She didn't say another word, just finished her meal while Jose watched the stars start to appear in the sky. That night, as Jose went back inside, he knew he had made a decision. He wouldn't let Matilde, or anyone else who was hungry, go unnoticed. From that day on, he would set aside a plate for her whenever he could. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make a difference. As the restaurant's lights went out and the doors closed, a small flame of hope had ignited in both Jose and Matilde. The future was still uncertain, but one thing Jose knew for sure: doing good was always the right path. Jose worked at the Sabores Caseros restaurant, and every night, before heading home, he did something special. He carefully prepared a plate of food for Matilde, an older woman who lived on the streets nearby. This had become part of his routine, and it made Jose feel good, knowing he was helping someone in need. That night, just like always, Jose put together a plate with the restaurant's leftovers and went out the back to find Matilde, who was already waiting. He knelt beside her, offering the food with a kind smile. But what Jose didn't know was that someone else was watching. Emerson, a famous influencer in the city, happened to be walking by and with his phone always ready, started recording the moment without Jose noticing. "Here you go, Matilde," Jose said warmly. "I hope you like it." Matilde looked at the plate as if it were a feast and with tears in her eyes replied, "You're an angel, my boy. I haven't had a proper meal in days. This will make my day." José smiled shyly, feeling his heart tighten. "Don't worry, I'll bring you something whenever I can," he said, trying to hide his emotion. Across the street, Emerson was deeply moved by what he saw. He posted the video on social media with the caption, "Today, I saw a young waiter do something not many would. He feeds an elderly woman with what he can. These gestures change lives. We need more people like him." José had no idea this was happening. After saying goodbye to Matilde, he returned to the restaurant, finished his shift, and headed home, exhausted. As soon as he got there, he collapsed onto the couch, just like he always did after a long day. Little did he know that his simple act of kindness was being watched by thousands online. After a long day at work, José grabbed his phone, expecting to see just a few messages from friends. But what he found was something completely different. Dozens of notifications. Confused, his fingers hesitated for a moment before unlocking the screen. He saw he had been tagged in several posts, and his Instagram followers had skyrocketed. What's going on? He wondered. Curiosity got the best of him, and he started to investigate. That's when he saw it, the video. The very same video Emerson, the influencer, had posted earlier. In the clip, José was kneeling beside Matilde, handing her a plate of food, and to his shock, the video was being shared by thousands of people. It had hundreds of comments and thousands of likes in just a few hours. José watched the video in silence, stunned. For him, it was just a simple act, something he did almost every day. But the internet had turned it into something much bigger. He scrolled through the comments. What a beautiful gesture. We need more people like this. This waiter deserves all the recognition in the world. There's still hope for humanity with people like him. He couldn't believe it. How could something so normal for him touch so many people? But then, anxiety started to creep in. He knew his boss, Guilherme, had strict rules about what to do with leftover food. And technically, giving it to Matilde was breaking those rules. Could this get me into trouble? He thought, his heart racing. His phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages. Strangers were reaching out, praising him for his kindness, and some even asked how they could help Matilde. José, still in shock from all the attention, didn't know how to respond. In just a few hours, he had gone from being a regular, unknown waiter to a social media star. As the night went on, José tried to relax, but he couldn't stop thinking about everything. He closed his eyes, but the images of the video, the comments, and the constant notifications kept spinning in his mind. What would happen next? José couldn't shake the thought that kept him awake. What will Guilherme think about this? He had helped Matilde from the goodness of his heart, but the restaurant had strict rules. Now that the video was going viral, he knew it was only a matter of time before his boss found out. Tossing and turning in bed, he couldn't fall asleep. Time dragged on, and he barely closed his eyes. On one hand, he felt happy seeing so many people touched by his gesture. On the other, fear gripped him. What if he lost his job? Sabores Caseros had clear rules, and giving food to Matilde broke them. José didn't know what to do. Meanwhile, Guilherme, the manager of Sabores Caseros, had returned home that evening like any other day. After dinner, he picked up his phone to scroll through social media. That's when a video caught his attention. To his surprise, it was José, his waiter, being praised for something Guilherme saw as a serious rule violation. The title read, "Waiter feeds elderly homeless woman with leftover food." A simple but powerful gesture. As Guilherme watched, his face turned red with anger. The restaurant had clear rules. Leftovers were to be thrown away, never given to others, especially not to homeless people. In Guilherme's mind, José had broken an important rule. To him, this wasn't just about kindness, but about risking the restaurant's image. He also thought about the cost of the food José was giving away. As the video quickly spread, gathering thousands of likes and comments, Guilherme realized the whole town was talking about it. He knew he had to make a decision, and fast. Anger was bubbling inside Guilherme as he typed a short, sharp message to José. "Tomorrow, I want an explanation about what I saw today. Be prepared to face the consequences." José, who had already struggled to sleep after watching the video go viral, felt a shiver run down his spine as he read the message. He had suspected that eventually he'd have to deal with Guilherme, But now, with this message, it all felt much more real and intimidating. Anxiety took hold of him, and he spent the rest of the night wide awake, imagining what could happen the next day. The next morning, when Jose arrived at the restaurant, something completely unexpected was waiting for him. Sabores Caseros, which usually had a quiet start to the day, was packed. There was a huge line stretching outside, and many people entered with curious glances and smiles on their faces. As soon as Jose walked through the door, he was greeted with applause. "You're the waiter from the video, right?" a customer asked, her eyes shining with admiration. "That was such a beautiful thing you did. Congratulations." Another customer chimed in from further back. "I saw your gesture last night. Amazing work, man." Jose froze for a moment, unsure of how to react. The restaurant, usually calm in the mornings, was now buzzing with people who had come because of the video's impact. Some wanted to meet the generous waiter in person. Others simply wanted to support the restaurant after seeing the viral story. Jose felt a mix of pride and unease. The applause and praise filled him with happiness for having done what he believed was right, but he knew that, despite all the positivity, the confrontation with Guilherme was still ahead. And, as expected, Guilherme was not pleased at all. Among the chatter of customers talking about the video, the manager called Jose into his office wearing a stern expression. Once inside, Guilherme shut the door firmly, creating a tense silence in the small room. "Now, you're going to explain to me what you thought you were doing," Guilherme began, his voice low but filled with restrained anger. "Giving restaurant food to a homeless woman? What were you thinking?" Guilherme exclaimed, anger bubbling in his voice. Jose, already prepared for the confrontation, took a deep breath and responded, "I saw her situation, Guilherme. Matilda hadn't eaten in days. I couldn't just ignore that." "That doesn't matter," Guilherme interrupted, raising his voice. "The rules here are clear. Leftovers go in the trash. We can't risk hygiene problems or, worse, accusations of serving bad food. And besides, you're giving away something that belongs to the restaurant." "But she needed it, Guilherme. It was the right thing to do. We can't throw away food when there are hungry people right outside." Jose tried to argue, keeping calm, but his frustration was starting to show. Guilherme, however, was not willing to listen. To him, the video and all the fuss were a challenge to his authority. "You broke the rules, and for that, you will have to face the consequences. All that food you gave to that woman, you are going to pay for it." Jose was momentarily speechless. He knew Guilherme could react badly, but he didn't expect things to escalate this much. "Pay for the food?" he repeated in disbelief. "I didn't do it for profit. I did it to help someone." "Help or not, rules are rules," Guilherme said coldly. "And on top of paying for what you distributed, you're fired. I can't allow someone to disobey my orders and stay here. I have to maintain control of the restaurant." To Jose, the world seemed to stop for a moment. He felt the ground slip away beneath his feet. All the recognition, all the love from the customers outside, everything seemed to fade in the face of Guilherme's severity. "I'm fired," Jose repeated, almost unable to believe it. "Yes, from now on, you are out," Guilherme stated firmly. "Leave through the front doors, but know that this won't be cheap. I won't allow an employee to disobey and remain here." Jose felt a mix of anger and despair. He knew he had done what he believed was right, but now he was being punished for it. Jose took one last look at Guilherme, saying nothing, and turned towards the door. On his way out, he braced himself for the reality that awaited him outside. The applause and smiles of the customers barely masked the heavy burden he now carried. He knew that, despite being fired, he had touched the hearts of many. Yet, the future still felt uncertain. With a tumultuous mind and a heavy heart, Jose stepped out of Sabores Caseros, clutching his few belongings in a backpack. He was still dazed by everything that had happened. The viral video, the applause from customers, and finally, the harsh reality of being fired by Guilherme. As he walked toward the parking lot, the weight of injustice felt crushing. Suddenly, a voice called out, "Jose!" It was an unexpected but familiar voice. Jose turned around and saw Ricardo Ferreira, the owner of Sabores Caseros, approaching quickly. Ricardo, known for his discreet presence and rarely seen in the day-to-day of the restaurant, now wore a worried expression. "Ricardo?" Jose murmured, surprised. Ricardo stopped in front of him, visibly intrigued. What's going on, Jose? I just passed by the restaurant and noticed something unusual. I heard people talking about a video, and now I see you leaving with your things. Can you explain? Jose was about to respond, but before he could speak, the restaurant door swung open abruptly. Guilherme, the manager, rushed in, sporting his usual authoritative and confident expression. Seeing Ricardo talking to Jose, he quickly moved in, as if taking charge of the situation. Ah, Ricardo, I'm glad you're here. Guilherme started, trying to sound calm and confident. Jose found himself in a tough spot. He heard Guilherme say, I had to fire Jose. He did something that could hurt the restaurant. When he heard the word fire, it felt like a heavy stone had dropped in his stomach. Ricardo, the restaurant owner, looked confused and asked, Fire Jose? Why? Without skipping a beat, Guilherme quickly replied, He broke the rules. He was giving food to a homeless woman. We have a strict policy about what to do with leftovers. And on top of that, a video of him doing this went viral. It could damage our restaurant's reputation. Ricardo listened carefully, his expression growing more serious. When Guilherme finished, he turned to Jose. Jose, is what he's saying true? Were you giving food from the restaurant to someone on the street? Feeling a bit nervous, Jose answered honestly, Yes, Mr. Ricardo. Matilde, a lady who lives on the street, was starving. She told me she hadn't eaten in days, and I couldn't just ignore that. I set aside a plate of leftovers that were going to be thrown away and gave it to her. I never thought it would cause such a big problem. Before he could say more, Guilherme interrupted, impatiently trying to assert his authority. But Ricardo, the rules are clear. We can't let employees give out food without permission. This could be dangerous for the restaurant. I had to fire him to keep order. Ricardo looked at Guilherme with a firm expression. So you decided to fire an employee who was helping someone in need without even consulting me? Guilherme hesitated, realizing the situation was turning against him. Ricardo looked at Jose with a sad expression and said, Well, I thought it was the best decision, considering the risk and public exposure. He sighed, clearly disappointed. Jose, I didn't know about your firing until now. And to be honest, I didn't even know that the video had gone viral so quickly. Then he paused, and Jose's eyes widened in shock when he heard, But there's something you need to know. The influencer who recorded the video, Emerson, is a personal friend of mine. Jose was stunned. Your friend, he murmured, unable to believe it. Ricardo nodded. Yes, Emerson is a longtime friend. He called me before posting the video and asked for my permission. I saw the video before anyone else, and I was the one who approved the posting. Jose was speechless. He was trying to process this revelation. You knew about the video and allowed it to be posted? Guilherme, on the other hand, seemed completely stunned. Ricardo continued, I knew this video would draw attention to the restaurant, but not in the way you're thinking, Guilherme. The attention it brought was extremely positive. The restaurant is packed today because of that video. People are praising Jose's actions, and instead of recognizing the positive impact, you chose to punish kindness. Guilherme tried to justify himself again. But Ricardo, the rules were broken and that... But Ricardo interrupted. Rules are important, but so is discernment. Clearly you didn't use common sense in this case. Jose did something admirable. He showed compassion when many would have ignored it. You, on the other hand, acted petty and recklessly. Guilherme was frozen, Ricardo's words finally hitting home. He tried to mumble a defense but couldn't find the words. Ricardo took a deep breath and made his decision. Guilherme, what you did was unacceptable. Ricardo looked firmly at Guilherme and said, You acted authoritatively without consulting me, the owner of the restaurant. And worst of all, you punished someone for doing good. Because of that, you're fired. Guilherme's face turned pale. He tried to respond, but the words wouldn't come out. But, Ricardo, you can't be serious. I am very serious, Ricardo replied with a strong voice. Your leadership has been questionable for a long time, and this was the last straw. I won't tolerate this kind of behavior in my restaurant. Guilherme realized he had no more arguments. He lowered his head and turned to leave, walking slowly away and leaving Ricardo and Jose behind. When Guilherme disappeared through the door, Ricardo turned his attention to Jose, now with a calm and understanding expression. Jose, don't worry. You still have a job here, and I'm proud of your actions. The video showed something I also believe in. We need more people to help each other, especially in times of need. More importantly, your action brought a lot of positive visibility to Sabores Caseros. Jose, relieved and deeply grateful, felt a wave of emotions. For the first time since leaving the restaurant, he felt valued and understood. "Thank you, Mr. Ricardo," Jose said, with tears in his eyes. "I just wanted to help." "And you did it in the best way possible," Ricardo replied with a smile. "As for the video, Emerson and I have some plans, but that's a conversation for later. For now, take a rest. You did a great job." With that, Jose felt the weight of the past hours lift off him, replaced by a sense of gratitude and renewed hope. The next day, after all the chaos at Sabores Caseros, the atmosphere was much calmer. It was a really calm morning, and everyone could feel something good in the air. Jose, while working, felt light and happy, as if a big weight had been lifted off his shoulders. Around noon, Ricardo walked into the restaurant with a big smile on his face. He seemed much more relaxed. Ricardo waved Jose over for a chat and said, "Hey, Jose, let's take a break. We need to talk. And after everything that happened yesterday, we deserve a chill conversation." Jose was curious and followed Ricardo to a table in the corner of the restaurant. The place was bustling, but everyone seemed to be smiling. Jose noticed that more people were coming to the restaurant since the video was released. Ricardo began, "You know, I thought a lot about yesterday. You were amazing helping Mathilde. That shows you have a huge heart. It's not just about doing a good job, it's about doing the right thing. And that made me want to get to know you better, Jose. So tell me, what are your dreams? What do you want to be when you grow up?" Jose hesitated for a moment because he rarely shared his dreams. But since Ricardo had been so kind to him, he decided to be honest. "Well, Ricardo, I've always dreamed of becoming a chef," Jose said, his eyes shining. "I love the idea of cooking and making people happy with food. Working here has been great, but I want to learn more about real culinary arts." "Hey, Ricardo," Jose started, a little worried. "The thing is, culinary school is really expensive, and I can't afford it." Ricardo listened closely, his eyes sparkling with surprise and admiration. "Wow, you want to be a chef? That explains why you work so hard here at the restaurant. I never realized that was your dream." Jose smiled shyly. "Yes, it's always been in my heart, but life is tough, and I just don't have the resources to follow that path." Ricardo fell silent for a moment, thinking about Jose's words. He could see that Jose wasn't just a dedicated worker, he was someone with huge talent and passion. Before Ricardo could respond, a familiar voice interrupted them. "Hey, I couldn't help but overhear." It was Emerson, the influencer who filmed the video of Jose helping Mathilde, coming over with a big smile. "Jose, my friend," Emerson said with his usual charisma, "I heard you want to be a chef. After seeing how you made an impact, I'm sure you'll shine in the kitchen. People like you deserve opportunities." Jose blushed a little but smiled back. "Thank you, Emerson. That really means a lot to me." Emerson, however, wasn't finished. "You know, since I helped share your amazing act, I thought about doing something even bigger. I want to pay for your culinary school, Jose. The whole course, so you don't have to worry about a thing." Jose was completely stunned. For a moment, he couldn't believe what he just heard. Emerson's words sounded like a far-off dream, something he never expected to hear. He looked at Ricardo, who was smiling, and then back at Emerson, still unsure of what to say. You're serious?" Jose asked, his eyes sparkling with emotion. "I'm totally serious," Emerson replied, wearing a genuine smile. "You have incredible talent and a heart that deserves to be nurtured. I want to make sure nothing gets in the way of your dreams." Jose felt a wave of emotion wash over him. Tears began to flow, but this time they were tears of pure gratitude. He had spent years believing that his dream of studying culinary arts was out of reach, and now, suddenly, this opportunity was becoming real. I don't know how to thank you," Jose stammered, trying to find the right words. "This is more than I could have imagined." "No need to thank me," Emerson said, placing a hand on Jose's shoulder. "Just keep being who you are and follow your dreams. The rest will work itself out." Jose wiped his eyes, still emotional, and looked at Ricardo, who just smiled and nodded, as if to say everything would be okay. Jose's life was about to change in ways he had never predicted. But in the middle of all this excitement, one question lingered in his mind. He had received a wonderful blessing, but he couldn't stop thinking about Matilde, the lady he helped every night. "I just have one question," José said, his voice still trembling. "And what about Matilde? What will happen to her?" Ricardo and Emerson exchanged glances, as if they were waiting for this question. Then Ricardo smiled and answered. "José, I have an amazing idea I've been thinking about for a while," Ricardo started, his eyes sparkling. "After everything that happened, I believe now is the perfect time. I want to open a restaurant where people like Matilde can eat for free or just a tiny fee, and I want you to be part of it." José's eyes lit up with excitement. "A restaurant to help those in need?" he asked, thrilled. Ricardo nodded, grinning. "Exactly. You can help lead this project while you study culinary arts. This way, you'll get to cook for those who need it most, and at the same time, you'll be fulfilling your dream." José could hardly contain his happiness. Everything he had ever wanted was happening. Not only would he have the chance to become a chef, but he could also keep helping Matilde and so many others. Looking at Ricardo and Emerson, he said with deep gratitude, I accept. Thank you so much. I don't know how to repay you." "You don't need to repay anything, José," Ricardo replied. "Just keep being the amazing person you are. The rest will fall into place." In the following days, José's life felt like an emotional roller coaster. He was still trying to process that he was finally going to study culinary arts, something he thought was just a distant dream. But what occupied his mind the most was Ricardo's new project. A popular restaurant for vulnerable people. And suddenly, José was going to be a key part of it all. The following week, Ricardo called a meeting at Sabores Caseros to share all the details of his plan. When José arrived at Ricardo's office, he was nervous but excited. He sat in the chair across from Ricardo, who greeted him with a warm smile. "José," Ricardo began, crossing his arms over the table, "you've heard a bit about what I'm planning, but now I want to tell you everything." José was paying close attention and gave a small nod, encouraging Ricardo to continue. "I've been thinking a lot about how to use the success of my restaurants for something bigger, something that truly impacts society," Ricardo started, his eyes sparkling. "The video with Matilde was a wake-up call for me. Hunger is all around us, and the people who need help the most are often the ones who get the least. This can't go on." He paused for a moment, gauging José's reaction, who was now watching with curiosity. "So, I've decided to bring to life a project that has been in my heart for a while, a community restaurant. A place where homeless people and those in need can eat with dignity, paying what they can, or if they can't, eating for free." José straightened up in his chair, surprised and touched. "A community restaurant? That's amazing, Mr. Ricardo." José thought for a moment, Ricardo's words still echoing in his mind. A popular restaurant where people could eat without worrying about the price. A place of hope. "How about food and hope?" José suggested, his eyes shining. "Perfect. Food and hope it is." And so began the planning phase. In the following weeks, Ricardo and José visited many possible locations for the restaurant to find the structure and talk to suppliers. José, still amazed at the direction his life was taking, began to imagine the dishes he would serve. He wanted the menu to be simple but full of flavor and love, just like the home-cooked meals he had always cherished. During this time, José also continued working at Sabores Caseros, balancing his new responsibilities with the job he knew so well. As the Food and Hope project began to take shape, José couldn't stop thinking about Matilde. He knew she would be a special presence in the new restaurant, and he could hardly wait to see how it would help people like her. The planning days were long, but José felt full of energy. He was finally living his dream of studying gastronomy while also making a difference in many people's lives. Food and Hope was about to become a reality, and José, more confident than ever, was ready to lead this project with all the love and kindness he had always shared. The weeks leading up to the grand opening were intense. Between studying and helping Ricardo with the final preparations, José barely had time to breathe. Yet, strangely, he had never felt so alive. The restaurant, located right in the heart of the city, was almost ready to open its doors, and excitement grew with each passing day. Finally, the big day arrived. The sun was shining brightly, welcoming something amazing. The city center buzzed with activity as people gathered around, curious to see the new restaurant that promised to feed not only the body but also the spirit. Food and Hope was no ordinary restaurant. With the motto, "Pay what you can," it offered meals for those who could pay, or, if they couldn't, they could eat for free. The opening ceremony was emotional. Friends, customers, and even some local celebrities came together to support this beautiful idea. Emerson, the influencer whose viral video started it all, was there too, capturing every magical moment with his camera. Ricardo stepped up to the microphone, a warm smile on his face. "Hey everyone, we're here today to celebrate something really special. This restaurant isn't just a place to eat, it's a symbol of solidarity and hope." He looked at Jose, standing beside him, and continued, "We're here to remember that no one should be forgotten or left behind." Ricardo pointed at Jose and said, "This restaurant was built to offer not just food, but dignity. And who better to lead this project than Jose? His compassion started it all." The crowd erupted in applause. Jose's eyes sparkled with emotion as he smiled shyly. He never imagined that a simple act, helping Matilde with a plate of food, would bring him here. Even more amazing, he never thought about the impact it would have on so many lives. With a symbolic cut of the ribbon at the entrance, Food and Hope was officially opened. The doors swung wide and the first customers began to enter, some curious and others excited. But the most special presence for Jose that day was Matilde. She, the elderly woman who had been living on the streets and who sparked everything, was now walking into the restaurant with a new shine in her eyes. Her clothes were clean, and she looked more peaceful. Jose rushed to her, and they shared a warm hug. "Matilde, you look so different," Jose exclaimed, grinning from ear to ear. Matilde laughed, tears of joy sparkling in her eyes. "Yes, my dear. My life has changed a lot since that day. My daughter saw my video with Emerson. She lives in another state, but when she recognized me, she came looking for me. Now, I'm living with her, safe and sound. I have a home again, thanks to you." Jose felt a huge burst of gratitude in his heart. You know why? Because that simple act of feeding Matilde had turned into something much bigger than he could ever imagine. "Matilde, you will always have a place here," he said, feeling emotional. "This restaurant is as much yours as it is mine." Matilde nodded, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "I come here every day, Jose," Matilde said with a smile. "Not just for the delicious food, but because this place makes me feel alive again." With Matilde as an unofficial ambassador for the restaurant, Food and Hope quickly became a success. The idea of letting people pay what they could, or nothing at all if they couldn't afford it, attracted not only those in need, but also many who wanted to support the cause. Those who could pay more did, and those who couldn't ate for free. Donations started pouring in from all over the country. Local businesses, organizations, and even people from other cities began to help, sending food and money to make sure the restaurant could keep running. The project touched the hearts of everyone who heard about it, and the kindness surrounding Food and Hope was a reflection of Jose's impact. Jose, in turn, dedicated himself wholeheartedly to the restaurant while still studying gastronomy. Every day, he got better and better, testing new dishes and creating menus that were simple yet full of flavor and love. Cooking for those people was more than just a job, it was a mission. Every day, Jose saw people like Matilde come in, not just to fill their stomachs, but also to find a warm place to belong. Many homeless people who came to Food and Hope said it was the first place they felt truly seen and respected in a long time. And guess what? The restaurant's success exceeded all expectations. Before long, Food and Hope became a landmark in the city, and other restaurants began to copy the idea in different areas. Jose and Ricardo's initiative turned into a big movement. In the middle of all this, Jose felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had found his true calling. He wasn't just a chef anymore. He was someone making a real difference in people's lives. Cooking for those in need brought him joy like he had never felt before. Each smile of satisfaction from customers filled his heart with happiness. As the sun set on the day of the grand opening and the last lights of the restaurant were turned off, Jose looked around and realized how much his life had changed. He was the chef of a place that served not only food, but also hope. In the end, that was all he ever wanted, to do good with his hands and his heart. The success of Food and Hope kept growing, and now Jose, more experienced and confident, led the restaurant with passion and purpose. Every day brought new challenges but also immense satisfaction as he saw the positive impact the project had on so many lives. The city embraced the initiative, and the restaurant became a symbol of kindness and transformation. Meanwhile, Guilherme, the former manager of Home Flavors, was having a tough time after losing his job. He spent weeks reflecting on his actions and the consequences of his bossy and selfish behavior. One day, Guilherme started to wonder, did I do the wrong thing? He thought about what he could have done differently and realized that kindness and generosity meant much more than he had ever imagined. So he decided to change. Guilherme began volunteering at shelters and organizations that helped homeless people, things he would have never considered before. Slowly, he started to see the world in a new way, with more empathy and less judgment. Months after losing his job, he approached Food and Hope. He looked different now. His serious face had transformed into one that showed humility and regret. When Jose, who was now running the restaurant with calmness, saw Guilherme walk in, he was surprised. "Guilherme?" Jose said, shocked. Guilherme took a deep breath, clearly nervous. "Jose, I want to apologize. I was very wrong. I deeply regret how I acted. What you're doing here is amazing, and I'd like to know if I can help in any way." Jose was silent for a few seconds, watching the man in front of him. He could see sincerity in Guilherme's eyes. This wasn't the same arrogant man from before. This was someone who had learned from his mistakes and was seeking a second chance. With a warm smile, Jose nodded and said, "Everyone deserves a second chance, Guilherme. If you want to help, you're welcome here." Guilherme smiled, relieved, and from that day on, he started volunteering at Food and Hope. Over time, he became a strong supporter of the cause, helping to keep the restaurant running and offering support wherever needed. His transformation was visible to everyone, proving that it's possible to change for the better. Food and Hope continued to thrive, now with Guilherme as part of the team, contributing to the transformation of many lives. The feeling of reconciliation and forgiveness filled the air, and the restaurant became not just a place for food, but for second chances. In the end, the story of Jose, Matilde, and Guilherme showed that everyone has the power to change. And in the hearts of everyone who passed through the restaurant, there remained the lesson that kindness, compassion, and learning from mistakes are the keys to a better world. Did you enjoy today's story? Then subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with your friends. See you in the next video.